The silent warrior who made an army vanish. The temperature had dropped to -15 degrees Celsius. December 1944. Eastern France. The war was supposed to be ending, but nobody told that to the 200,000 German soldiers pouring through the Vosges mountains like a tidal wave of steel and fury. In a small farming village called Reipertswiller, a 22-year-old sergeant named Vincent DeLuca sat in a frozen foxhole, watching his breath turn to ice crystals in the air. He wasn't supposed to be there. 3 months earlier, he'd been working in his father's bakery in Brooklyn, kneading dough at 4 a.m., dreaming of opening his own place someday. Now he was about to become something the German High Command would later call der Geist, the ghost. The world crumbles. Operation Nordwind. You've probably never heard of it. History remembers D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, the liberation of Paris. But Operation Nordwind? That was Hitler's final desperate gamble in the West, a massive offensive designed to crush the Allied southern flank and recapture Strasbourg. The German 19th Army, backed by elite mountain troops and the remnants of several panzer divisions, smashed into American positions on New Year's Eve 1944. The timing was deliberate. While the world celebrated, German commanders knew Allied troops would be stretched thin, distracted, unprepared. They were right about most of them. But they hadn't counted on Vincent DeLuca. The man nobody noticed. Vincent wasn't the poster boy for American heroism. He was 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighed maybe 140 pounds soaking wet, and spoke with a thick Brooklyn accent that made officers wince. His file said he scored below average on leadership assessments. His marksmanship? Adequate. Nothing special. But there was something his file didn't capture. Something his drill sergeants never saw. Vincent DeLuca had grown up in a neighborhood where survival meant reading people, understanding patterns, knowing when to move and when to disappear. His grandfather, an Italian immigrant, had told him stories about World War I, not about glory or medals, but about staying alive. Vincenzo, the old man would say, the loud soldier gets the bullet. The smart soldier gets home. Vincent remembered every word. The night everything changed. January 1, 1945. 2:37 a.m. The German artillery came first, turning the frozen earth into a hellscape of fire and shrapnel. Then came the infantry, waves of them, gray ghosts moving through the snow under cover of darkness. Vincent's platoon was positioned at a critical crossroads. If the Germans took it, they'd have a direct route to Allied supply lines. The lieutenant, a 23-year-old from Virginia, was killed in the first 5 minutes. The staff sergeant lasted another 10. By 3 a.m., Vincent DeLuca was the highest-ranking man left alive in a position that was supposed to be held by 40 soldiers. He counted heads. 7 men. 7 terrified, half-frozen soldiers against at least 200 German troops with tank support rolling in behind them. Most sergeants would have ordered a retreat. Vincent DeLuca did something that would haunt German veterans for the rest of their lives. He smiled. The ghost is born. Listen to me, Vincent said, his voice eerily calm as mortar rounds exploded around them. We're not holding this position. We're going to make them think they're walking into hell itself. What happened over the next 6 hours defies military logic. Vincent split his 7 men into 3 groups, positioning them at angles that would create crossfire zones. But here's where it gets interesting, he didn't have them fire at the same time. Vincent had studied the German tactics. He knew their assault doctrine, their timing, their psychology. So he orchestrated something brilliant, he made 7 soldiers sound like 70. Group 1 would fire a burst, then relocate in the darkness. 30 seconds later, Group 2 would open up from a completely different position. Then Group 3. Then back to Group 1, but from a new location. To the Germans advancing through the snow, it seemed like they were facing a much larger, well-coordinated defensive force. But that was just the beginning of Vincent's psychological warfare. The theater of war. Vincent had grown up going to the movies every Saturday. He loved films, the drama, the tension, the way directors manipulated emotion. Now, in the frozen darkness of Reipertswiller, he became a director of death. He had his men scream in German, commands, warnings, anything to create confusion. He set small fires in abandoned buildings to simulate positions that didn't exist. He used trip wires connected to empty ration cans filled with rocks, creating the sound of movement where there was none. When German scouts approached, Vincent didn't shoot them immediately. He let them get close enough to see shadows moving between buildings, close enough to hear American voices calling out coordinates for artillery that would never come. Then, and only then, would he eliminate them, but never all of them. He always let one escape. Why? Because survivors talk. And survivors who are terrified spread fear faster than any bullet. By dawn, the German advance had stalled. Radio intercepts later revealed that German commanders believed they were facing a reinforced company with heavy weapon support. In reality, Vincent had lost 2 more men. He was down to 5 soldiers. 5 soldiers holding back an army. The moment of madness. January 1, 1945. 11:47 a.m. German command had had enough. They brought up 3 Panzer IV tanks and prepared for a final assault that would simply obliterate the American position. Vincent watched through binoculars as the tanks rumbled into position, infantry forming up behind them. This was it. The moment when tactics and tricks wouldn't matter anymore. When steel and explosive would settle the equation. Vincent's men looked at him, waiting for the order to retreat. Instead, Vincent handed out the last of their anti-tank grenades, sticky bombs that required getting within 20 feet of a tank to be effective. "Boss," one of his men said, "that's suicide." Vincent nodded. "Probably. But here's the thing, they don't know that we're suicidal. They think we're a fortified position with support. So when we do something crazy, they're going to think it's a trap." What Vincent did next would be studied in military academies for decades. He walked out into the open. Alone. Carrying a white flag. The impossible gambit. The German tanks stopped. Infantry raised their weapons but held fire. Through the snow, Vincent DeLuca walked toward an entire German assault force, waving a white flag like he was out for a Sunday stroll. But Vincent wasn't surrendering. He was counting. Counting the seconds it took for German officers to register what was happening. Counting the positions of the tanks. Counting the number of infantry visible in the open. Counting everything. When he was 50 yards from the lead tank, Vincent dropped the white flag and dove behind a destroyed vehicle. That was the signal. His 5 men opened fire simultaneously from concealed positions, not at the tanks, but at the infantry officers who'd stepped forward to accept the surrender. In the chaos that followed, Vincent threw his sticky bombs at the lead tank, disabling it and blocking the advance route for the other 2. But here's what made it psychological genius: Vincent had told his men to immediately cease fire after the initial volley and relocate again. So after 30 seconds of intense combat, everything went silent. The Germans were left wondering, was this an ambush? How many Americans were actually there? Were there more forces waiting? Was the surrender a trap designed to draw them into a kill zone? Uncertainty became Vincent's most powerful weapon. The cost of victory. For 3 more hours, Vincent played his game of shadows and smoke. He made the Germans believe every building contained threats, every corner concealed soldiers, every silence preceded an attack. By 3 p.m., American reinforcements finally arrived, a full company with tank destroyers and artillery support. When they reached Vincent's position, they found him and his 4 remaining men still holding the crossroads. The German force? They'd withdrawn, leaving behind destroyed vehicles and dozens of casualties. Post-war analysis estimated that Vincent's tiny force had stalled an advance that included over 300 German troops and armor support. But the true impact wasn't measured in enemy casualties or ground held. It was measured in time. precious hours that allowed Allied forces to reposition and ultimately stop Operation Nordwind from achieving its objectives. The soldier who vanished. Vincent DeLuca was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, and 2 Purple Hearts. General Patch, commander of the 7th Army, personally pinned the medals on his chest and asked him how he'd done it. Vincent's response: "I just remembered what my grandfather taught me, sir. The loud soldier gets the bullet. The smart soldier gets home." But here's where Vincent's story takes a turn that makes him different from other war heroes. He refused every interview request. Declined to write a memoir. Never appeared at veteran reunions. He went back to Brooklyn, opened that bakery he'd dreamed about, and lived quietly until his death in 1998 at age 76. For decades, researchers and historians tried to piece together what happened at Reipertswiller. German survivors gave conflicting accounts. Some swore they'd faced at least 100 Americans, others claimed there were hidden machine gun nests and pre-positioned artillery. None of them believed the truth until official records were declassified in the 1970s. 7 men. Down to 5 by the end. Holding off an army. Why Vincent DeLuca was the scariest soldier of WW2. So what made Vincent DeLuca terrifying? It wasn't his size or strength or marksmanship. It was something far more unsettling. He understood that war isn't just physical, it's psychological. He realized that the human mind, especially in combat, fills gaps with fears. Show a soldier shadows and silence, and his imagination creates monsters. Vincent didn't try to be stronger than the enemy. He made them believe they were weaker than they actually were. He turned their own tactical doctrine against them, their own training into a liability. The Germans at Reipertswiller weren't defeated by superior firepower. They were defeated by doubt, by uncertainty, by the creeping fear that nothing was what it seemed. In a war of millions, Vincent DeLuca proved that one person who understands human psychology can be more dangerous than a battalion of soldiers. He became a ghost not by disappearing, but by making an entire army question their own reality. The legacy of a ghost. When Vincent died in 1998, his obituary in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle was 3 paragraphs long. It mentioned his bakery, survived by his wife and 2 daughters, beloved grandfather of 5. The Distinguished Service Cross was mentioned in passing, as if it was just another detail, like his membership in the local church. But in Germany, in the military archives, his story lived on differently. There's a report from a German veteran, written in 1987, that describes the events at Reipertswiller. The veteran was 19 years old during the battle, part of the infantry that faced Vincent's position. He wrote, "We were told we were the elite. We had crushed Poland, France, pushed deep into Russia. We feared nothing. But on that day in the snow, we learned to fear silence. We learned to fear shadows. We learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you cannot see, cannot count, cannot understand." Whoever commanded that position understood something about war that our generals never taught us, that terror lives in the mind, not on the battlefield. That commander was a 22-year-old baker from Brooklyn. The question that haunts U.S. Today's warfare is different: drones, satellites, thermal imaging, real-time intelligence. Could a soldier like Vincent DeLuca have the same impact now? Or was he a product of a specific moment in history, when fog and snow and darkness could hide the truth, when radio communications could be disrupted, when psychological warfare required nothing more than courage, creativity, and an understanding of human nature? Perhaps the real question is this: in our age of technology and precision, have we forgotten that the most sophisticated weapons system is still the human mind? Vincent DeLuca never wanted to be remembered as a warrior. He wanted to be remembered as the man who made the best cannolis in Brooklyn. But history doesn't always care what we want. He remains, der Geist, the ghost. The soldier who made an army vanish not through violence, but through the simple, terrifying power of making them question everything they thought they knew. That's why Vincent DeLuca was the scariest soldier of World War II.